about what that role entails and learned so much about districting through this process. And so by appointing me to this role, you all entrusted me to lead our efforts. And I felt I've been respectful of all points of views as we've worked toward establishing our cohesive plan to achieve our goal of doing the districting map. From the get-go, I felt it's essential for me to balance advocating for and expressing my thoughts and also being an advocate and supporter of this body's will. I feel like I've walked a fine line to make sure it never even appears as though I'm using my position and authority as chair to sway the commission in any particular way or ever act against the majority's will. In our last meeting, I did decide to support the body's will in our last vote, voting in favor of 8-8. And I feel there's a lot of validity in the feedback we received, and I greatly appreciate all the time and energy and passion from our community and everyone who spoke up and made their voices heard. And I believe at the end of the day, either iteration of the districting map that we've discussed will result in more local representation than we currently have and have historically had. And that was one of my goals going into this process. So I just wanted to say that before we get going. We'll move over to staff comments.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am actually going to hand the floor over to Flora Diaz from legal, who has a couple comments for us today. I don't have any other than that.
Sure. Hi. We just had a question about which statutory procedures applied to the notice and public meetings that we had. So there is the procedures we followed, which is the RCW 29A.7 procedures. Separately, under the Washington State Voting Rights Act, there's RCW 29A.92, which has a completely different set of notice procedures. And the reason why that doesn't apply to what we're doing here is because the 29A.92 procedures are for response to maybe a voter challenge or litigation alleging that cities or counties or whatever, it could be different types of districts, are guilty of vote dilution or other sorts of inappropriate consideration of race, or that even maybe were fine when they were drafted but have become an issue as far as racial equality goes. And so we haven't been sued. That's not what happened in Everett. In Everett, of course, we had a charter amendment based on the Everett District's now request to change what our charter has in order to go from at-large to districts, and it wasn't based on any sort of Voting Rights Act challenge. And so that's why we're under the 29A.76 procedures and not the 29A.92 procedures, which have just totally different districting procedures as far as notice, specific to the racial bias aspect of those sorts of cases. Any questions with that? Okay.
Alrighty, then we will move on to comments from the commission. And so we just wanted to add some time at the beginning of this meeting if anyone had any comments that they wanted to make, anything they wanted to share before we do a little bit more map discussion and talk about any other small changes to 8-8.
This is Chris. If there's no other comments, I felt like we were a little frantic at the end of the last meeting, and I think some other people, including myself, might have been a little bit confused about what exactly the motion was and what we accomplished. I think the language of John's motion, if I remember right, was that be a final map, and yet we're talking about changes. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear about that and make sure that's on the public record.
So absolutely, Chris. So what was discussed was that the final 8-8 map to present to council was adopted as is, and today is an opportunity to amend that motion if we so choose. So there were a few things that we had tabled before the meeting on Thursday, I believe, that we wanted to discuss: core area names, precinct 40, and I think there was one more, and I've got it in my notes here, that we wanted to discuss. And so since those things were tabled, those could be amendments to the motion that was created on Thursday. So I believe the intention of the motion was to move us forward and essentially adopt the majority of the map as it were, and then make small changes as you all see fit. And please correct me if anyone had a different understanding of the intention of the motion and what we're doing today.
Sounds good to me. Thanks.
Absolutely. So I think there is one thing that Tony would like to address. Do you want to start there, Tony? Or should we start with the names of the core areas? Or you're muted, sir.
Sorry. It doesn't matter to me. We could do one or the other. I can go through what I discovered as what I call a technical change in something. Sometimes people do technical changes even after the redistricting plan is approved, and this would fall underneath that. I discovered a precinct that did not match up with the VTDs that I had originally thought. And so it's a street lower than what it is in the VTDs. So we have to move the boundary lines basically down below. And it doesn't change, and I can show you all. Let me share my screen just to give you an idea. And this will allow Commissioner Wilson also to see the mapping software. I think he mentioned last week, interactive. And so this is the plan. This actually happens to be the precinct 40 change if we actually do that. I'm going to load in this precinct 18, which is the precinct that I'm referring to. And so this is a plan that actually shows you that. And if I zoom down on Bayside, there's a precinct 18. And so the VTD actually includes this area right here. But the precinct that had changed, I guess, recently includes these 3 blocks. And so these 3 blocks are included since we're not splitting precincts. We would include these 3 blocks right here. And the deviation doesn't change much. They essentially flip. So District 1 now has 1.86%, as you see here, and District 2 has 0.43%. And so that's the only change. The change would be in the population and deviation. If anybody is curious, any of the election analysis would remain the same because we're using the precinct and not the blocks. So all of that remains the same. So we will change that and reflect that in the final district, or potentially the district plan before we make any other changes, as in precinct 40.
So precinct 18 would move from District 1 to District 2? Is that what you're saying?
No. Here's the boundaries. I don't know if you can see that. This right here, let me turn this off. And I don't know if you see it flashing, unfortunately. The blue line represents the VTD boundaries, right? However, if I turn on the latest precincts, the latest precinct boundaries are 1 street below that. So this blue line is the VTD boundary. The red line is the recent precinct boundaries. So these 3 blocks will be included in precinct 12. It's carved out of precinct 18. So precinct 12 will now include this block, this block, this block. It's about 302 people that exist in here. And so those 302 people will now be included in District 1. They will be removed out of District 2. And that's the only changes. And so what that does is that just changes the population deviation. District 1 will now have a deviation of 1.86. District 2 will now have a deviation of 0.43. And that's really the only change. Are there any questions? I don't know if I explained that clearly.
I think that makes sense. If anyone's curious, I pulled it up on Google Maps, and that area would include like the Salvation Army on Rucker, Immaculate Conception, like the Qualstar Credit Union and Screen Printers Northwest, the businesses that are right in there. There's some apartment buildings, Banner Bank. So it does pick up a few apartment buildings, but I feel like I don't think it's going to make a big difference to District 1.
And let me say that since one of our guidelines that we've established is to not split precincts, then pretty much this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
These are the new precinct boundaries. So it's more of recognizing that's what it is, recognizing that these deviations will change. In essence, 2 was something like 1.7 and 1.8, and 1 used to be 0.45. They actually flip. And so 1 is now 1.86 and 2 is 0.43. Any other questions?
Just briefly, so we're certain that was the only precinct boundary that changed?
Yes, yes. Okay. The other ones I'm going to talk about before are annexed areas that have 0 population. And there is one area, and these are things that we pretty much can't do anything about. So that's why I saved them to the end, really. Well, I didn't save this. I found this about last week when I was reviewing the plan. But the other ones are annexed areas that I wanted to talk to you about right at the end. I don't know if we want to go into that right now or wait.
We can talk about it now.
Okay. There are annexed areas that clearly are part of the jurisdiction now, but they weren't part of the jurisdiction in 2010. And so what we have to do, we have to add those areas to the jurisdiction. All right. And 3 of these areas, let me see if I can show you. There's ones right here in this upper area right here. Another one, let me move. Try to make it a little easier for you to see. Let me see. Try to. I don't know, that's the best as I can do, unfortunately. Another one is down here, and another one is over in this area. So we have one here, one down here, and one up here. And there's a 4th one that, unfortunately, we're going to have to include. Now, the reason why I say unfortunately is all of these have 0 population deviations in 2010. We don't know if this one actually has 0 population. Now I'm going to switch programs. So I'm going to have to actually share a different program just to show you what I'm going to do. To the screen. Sorry about that. And so if I go down to zoom to this particular area, this is another program that I use to create the maps. This area right here. right there. That's another annexed area. And so if I show or underlay versus overlay, so overlay the streets, there appears to be some structures and potential housing areas in there. So the question is, what to do. And one of the things, of course, potentially, is you could actually try to determine what the population is in this particular area back in 2010. And that's very difficult to do. And that's why people don't do that. Another way of doing it is what they do is they look at this entire block here. There's a potential block area. If I can show that to you. Let me see. I don't have it loaded in, but what I will show you is that this area right here, that area that defines that 108th Street and 106th Street, and I believe that's 23rd Street, forms a census block. And there's 130 people in that census block. So the other technique that's used is just to ensure that your population deviation is less than 130 people, use the entire block, from the largest ideal population size. So remember that 5% that we talked about? That's the 21,000 and some. What we have to do is actually make sure that District 5 is less than 130 than that. And it is. And so we really don't have to do anything, because the main reason why we're doing this is for population deviation. So in essence, we've really accommodated it. If we move precinct 40, we'll have even more room. But even without moving precinct 40, we still have more than 130 people to accommodate the equal population criteria, rather. And so those are the two things that I want to talk to you about. Both are pretty much, there's nothing really we can do in either one except really accept it. Any questions? Okay. That's all I had.
Perfect.
So we would need a motion to make those changes. So it would be a motion to move precinct 12 into District 1, and then no. And let me say that, yeah. To, I guess, expand District 12 with the 3 blocks to reflect the new precinct boundaries. So expand District 12 to reflect new precinct boundaries. And then another one to adopt or move annex stations to be included, or areas that were annexed in 2010 to be included in our current map.
Sorry, just briefly, you said District 12? I think it was District 1.
Precinct 12, District 1.
To expand precinct 12 in District 1.
Yeah. To reflect the new precinct boundaries. And then to include the annexed areas that are no longer annexed or that have been annexed into the current A8 map.
Right. They actually have been included in them along the way. It's just, so I don't know how to frame that question, but I think you're on target of framing it probably the best way we can. Is to just accept the annex areas, as you said.
Let's do 2 separate motions, or can I just do 1 motion for both?
And I think we should, does anyone have any questions or comments on those 2 things, or do we want to process for a minute? Just kind of.
So it's actually 3 questions, isn't it? Or 3 different areas that you're talking about. So the reason why I'm asking is to make sure if we're going to do 1 separate for 1 and 2, then we're going to do 1 separate for 3. Because 3 is the one that is in Silver Lake. Am I mistaken, or is that correct, Tony?
I think Paul, tell me if I'm right. We were going to do two, one for the precinct change, adding those additional census blocks to the new precinct to accommodate the new precincts, and two, adding all of the annex areas.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that would include the one in Silver Lake.
Okay. I can make that motion.
Second.
Are you making the motion on the precinct one or the annexing areas one?
I think we were going to do
Both.
it one motion, two points in one motion.
Oh, I thought we can. Okay. So I'll go down. Do we want to open up any more discussion, or are we ready to vote? Alrighty. Mary Fossey,
Yay.
Chris Gry,
Yay.
Jim Langus,
Yes.
Ethel McNeil,
Yes.
John Monroe,
Yes.
Kari Kloss,
Yes.
Simone Tarver, yes. Julius Wilson,
Yes.
Ben Young.
Yes.
Alrighty, so unanimous to make those 4 changes.
Technical changes.
Technical changes, yes.
So then the other things that we had tabled previously are the names of our core areas and the where we put District 40. And so those, if we want to change the names of any of our core areas or move District 40, those would be amendments to our AA map. And so I think we should start with Precinct 40 and then go on to the names of our core areas. So Tony, do you want to bring that up so we can look at the location of Precinct 40 and what if we decided to change it what that would look like?
You're muted, Tony.
I'm sorry. Here's a map with Precinct 40 already changed. And so this is already added. And so if I zoom back out, you'll be able to see this precinct's got 481 persons in it. It will be removed from District 5 and placed in District 4 if you do so. The deviations will now change to 0.09% for District 4 and 1.86 for District 5. It's a little less compact, but not that much compact, so it's somewhat insignificant, let's say. It does allow, in the benefits, I guess it does allow for District 5 to be a little lower since it's the largest, one of the largest growing districts, fastest growing.
So we've talked on this subject a couple of times. I vaguely recollect we had a reason why we didn't do that. I don't have a strong opinion either way, but does anyone recollect what that was? I think we talked about school boundaries or something.
Well, I think the reason why, my opinion is the reason why we didn't do it was it was just one of those nits that we put on the, on the table that we would come back, and it wasn't something we needed to address right away. We needed to get a baseline. That's the way I remember it. I mean, nobody had any, the only reason that we were doing it, like Tony said, the only reason we were doing it is to take a few numbers out of District 5, since that's such a large district, and put them into District 4 and kind of balance, bring them both up closer to 0. And that was the only reason why we would do this.
As I look at this map, it looks to me like Cascade View will now become a part of District 4, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it was already part of District 4.
So now the entire
Right.
Cascade View will go into District 4.
It was already, so if you can see this blue line right here, that was the boundary, the old boundary. So all of this area right here was within it. Now we're adding this, and that was one of the things I was mentioning, Commissioner, before, is it becomes more of a Cascade View district. Now, this area right now is in District 4, and this area right now is in District 5.
Okay.
This is Kari. Coming back to the school district reason, Chris, is that actually 7th Avenue is the line for the school district. So on the west side is Mukilteo, and on the east is Everett. So it actually benefits it by adding 40 to District 4 for that reason, for sure.
Yeah, because if you come down 7th Avenue, like Kari is saying, on the left-hand side, if you come down heading south on 7th Avenue, you'll find that the left-hand side is the Everett School District and the right-hand side is the Mukilteo School District.
That is correct.
So Ethel, the question, the real question for me is that a benefit that you see worthwhile?
When it comes to the school districts, it works better to have Cascade View all into that school district, because most of those people in that area attend the Mukilteo School District. They don't attend the Everett School District.
But that's not the, I guess, I don't know if you're saying yes, it's a benefit, or no, it's not a benefit, because I don't know anything about schools. I'm going to tell you, I don't know anything about school districts. I've never gone to school here. No, I don't have children. So all I know is I pay school taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So that would it would be merging. It would be like, Mary and a lot of other people have brought up, like communities together. They're a community with something in common. I'm sure they have other things in common as well, but that's one thing that we can identify as something that they have in common.
Exactly.
Is that something that your city council representative will be voting on? Probably not, but is that a mutual interest? Yes. So I think.
So then does that make Cascade the largest area, Cascade View, the largest area in the West Mount Holly?
No.
Do you understand my question there?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
West Mount Holly is still the dominant area, or the dominant.
Correct, because Westmont Holly is full and Cascade View is split. So it's more of Cascade View than before, but it still doesn't outweigh Westmont.
Right.
Well, I was just hoping that the two folks that were from that area would weigh in there more so than.
So that'd be Julius and Ethel, right?
And Ethel, that's correct.
So, yes. And so for me, doing it the way Tony is suggesting benefits our area. I like it that way. It works for us.
I don't think there's a Julius.
Would you ask me? Dude?
Are you looking at the map, or are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone. I can call in.
Do you know what is being proposed?
Area, yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with the area.
So are you in agreement with Ethel, or you have a different opinion? That's my question.
I'm in agreement with Tony and Ethel. Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't think there's a question before us then. I don't.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't make sense to do what's being proposed. I'm looking at the Google map just to look closer at what that precinct is, and it could honestly go either way. It seems very, very similar to both sides. I mean, it's the same neighborhood, but I think it would be just fine with District 4.
And let me also say that one of the reasons why I revisited, of course, we all wanted to revisit it afterwards, was because of the comments from the public. We had a couple of different people ask whether we actually included population growth in our district configuration. And so what this does is this allows for District 5 to have a little more population growth room because it was at 4%. And so this allows it to have a little more population growth, specifically when the new data comes out in 2020. It may still exceed that, but still we've allowed for a little more population growth.
I think it makes sense. Does anyone else have any other comments, questions, concerns?
So are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
I think so. Yes.
So I would move that we move precinct 40 from District 4 to District 5.
Second.
I think the other way.
It's the other way around.
Oh, 40 into 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just for staff, so the motion is to move precinct 40 from 5 to 4.
Correct.
That would be an amendment of our motion from Thursday.
Correct. And we have a second, Simone, so go ahead and take the roll. Chris, you seconded, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mary Fossey?
Sure.
Chris Fry?
Yay.
Jim Langus?
Yes.
Ethel McNeil?
Yes.
John Monroe?
Yes.
Kari Kloss?
Yes.
Simone Tarver? Yes. Julius Wilson?
Yes.
Ben Young?
Yes.
Okay. So unanimous will end Thursday's motion to move District 40. Our next thing for discussion will be the core areas, or naming the core areas.
So is that specifically Lowell versus Port Gardner, or were there others?
There was, we had the discussion on whether or not to name our districts after the largest neighborhood in that area, or to, change the names in any way. And so I think we said we'd come back to it, and I just wanted to follow up and see if anybody had any comments or ideas or anything on what the districts should be named by this commission. So that was John's notes, but I think we can open it up for conversation. So John, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, I brought it up for the Port Gardner to change it to Port Gardner because first of all, it is the largest. It is larger than Lowell by significantly. The bay that Everett is founded upon is the Port Gardner Bay. But when it comes right down to it, we're going to be in District 1 or we're going to be in District 2, and and I'm still going to continue to be in the Port Gardner neighborhood. The folks that live east of me over towards the river, they're still going to continue to be in the Lowell neighborhood. So, I'm not hard set one way or the other. I just thought it made more sense since the Port Gardner plays such a significant role in our city today, population-wise and historically-wise. I don't have heartburn one way or the other.
Does anyone else have any ideas on the names or comments on the names? Doesn't sound like anyone's at the point where they should be making a motion to make any changes to that. So if anyone else has any thoughts, this would be a great time to share.
This is Kari. I think Port Gardner makes it tricky based on what I've understood the course to mean like the whole thing, that Lowell remains, it makes sense to me. If we were to break it up, then maybe a downtown core might make sense, because the downtown core is within District 2, as opposed to Port Gardner, which then splits actually into 1 and 2, or Lowell, or even Glacier View in the center. I don't know that it matters really either, but just maybe downtown would be the one I might propose as an alternate.
So it sounds like Kari and John, you're both kind of in favor of either leaving them as they are or listening to a point of view if someone feels strongly about it. Does anyone else have a comments on the naming of the cores?
I think at this point, we should steer clear of making any changes that weren't things that were like explicitly called out in the input that we received. I think we've had so much time to talk about a lot of these things that any other changes at this point, I mean, I think it needs to be either a really super compelling reason why we're going to make a change, or it needs to be based strictly on feedback we received. That would be my thoughts on any core changes we would make.
Great. So then we should move on then. So it sounds like A8 is solidified. So Tony, is there anything else that we need to review or cover before we put this map out to the community for 10 more days of public comment before it can be adopted by the City Council? And I also would like to open it up for any additional comments, concerns, or questions that commissioners have at the end of this meeting before this goes to council. So I just want to quickly say that this Wednesday, the 7th, Tony is going to do an educational update to our City Council to just explain the process we went through, A8, the data in it, so that they can understand what you've done to get where you're at. And then if you vote on this map in 10 days as a yes, then on the 21st, this will go to council for final adoption, which is well within our time frame and actually just 1 week early. So that's fantastic. And so with that, Tony, is there anything additional we need to do? Flora, is there anything additional we need to do? And then we'll open it up to the commission for final thoughts to those watching at home or to each other.
The only thing I guess would be what to call this new entity, this new animal, if you will, since we are going to make a change with precinct 40, and we're going to do a technical adjustment. And so do we call this now Plan A9, or do we call it Plan A8A, or Plan A8 with adjustments, or something like that?
What do people normally do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
E for Everett. I mean, I don't know at this point. We could do whatever we want.
Right. This really would become another plan, but like Plan A9, meaning that the commission thought about the comments and made a change. They made a change, according to adopting population growth or whatever it is, school district boundaries, something like that, and created Plan A9.
A9 makes sense. I'd rather that than anything too long and complicated.
Yeah, A9.
Why don't you put it out to the public and see what they name it? Public comment.
I don't know if you've ever put anything out to be named by the public, Mary, but I don't think I'd be able to read any of our responses on here.
So
Let's go with A9.
Plan A9 then.
Yeah.
I think Mary got jokes.
So
Really, Mary, I'm as it is now, I've already had to sell my car, so let's let this body name it.
Do we need to do a motion for that, or
no, you can just take that as a fill vote. No one is, I mean, we've been naming these without your votes for this whole time. So I think that that's fine. It's Flora.
I just want to clarify the timeline since we want to allow this final A9 to get published and then to receive public comment for 10 days. And then after that is when we'll have our return meeting to vote on whether to make any additional changes based on the written public comment. So just wanted to clarify the timeline on this. When's our next meeting?
We'll have our next meeting on the 19th, so that way I can get this published in all the appropriate places, and we'll have plenty of time to accept public comment. And then on the 19th, actually, we should probably do it 1, 2, 3. We should probably meet on the 15th. I guess I'll have to turn it around really quickly because if you did decide to make changes, those would have to go out for another 10 days. And so,
since today's the 5th, I don't think the 15th is.
Well,
it would have had to have been published today. I think, to allow.
Or
no, it's 10 days.
The 16th then.
Yeah, I think this. If it's published tomorrow, if it's like in a paper tomorrow.
So I guess the soonest we can meet is the 19th.
Yeah.
I think the 19th should be fine.
1, 2. Okay, the 19th it is then. So do you want to open the floor then, Simone, for final comments or thoughts from anybody?
Yeah.
Discussion item.
I will be giving like a little like overview, kind of similar to the overview comments I gave before the community meetings for the city council meeting. So if anyone wants to watch, see what I say, you are of course welcome to. But I'll open the floor. Does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? Nothing, man. Suspiciously quiet group today. Alrighty, well, if we don't have anything else, that's all we've got for today.
So I'm going to publish the map that was approved today, which is A9. Before I put it in the newspaper, I'm going to email it out to all of you for just a quick review, but we are on a crunch timeline. So when you see that come through for me, please just review it as soon as you can. Tony, how quickly can you have A9 for me? Can you have it tomorrow?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. And that will be the map that Tony shows to the council. And of course, it will be a draft map because you can make changes after the 10 days of comments. And that is everything. So that's all I have for you guys.
Let's say after Nicole sends the map out tomorrow, let's say if anyone has any comments, just to get them to her by the end of the day tomorrow, end of business tomorrow. And then if anything is beyond that, we'll just, send it in, but it just might already have gone out to in the newspaper because I know they like to get that early. So if no one else has anything else to say, I move to adjourn.
Second. We're out of here. Thank you.
Right.
Good job.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.